Okay, we'll go. Welcome today, Wednesday the 15th of May, Dartford District Council's meeting here for hearing submissions to the long-term plan. Submissions. First of all, I'd like to extend the apologies given by Councillor Manderson. We have Councillor Vincent online. I'm not sure where the Councillor Lambeth is, but I suspect he will be here shortly. Can I have a mover for the apologies, please? Thank you. Aaron Wilson-Collins, a seconder. Councillor Howard, all those in favour? Aye. Thank you. Confirmation of agenda. Can I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Naya, a seconder. Councillor Paniora, thank you. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Conflict of interest declaration. Is there any conflicts to be declared? Conflicts? Okay. Can I have a mover for that, please?
I'll move.
You don't need a mover? Okay. Long-term plan 2024-2027 consultation submissions. I'll make a move on that one. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Naya. So I've moved that we received the 733 submissions submitted for the long-term plan 2024-2027. Here are the submitters who want to be heard and agrees that the submissions received after the official close up until the 9th of May be included in the hearings and deliberation process. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, motion carried. Okay, just some housekeeping here. I hope you've all read the elected members' memorandum on the process today. Just to remind you that I'd like you to be as attentive as possible. I think I've turned my phone off. I'd like you to do the same and give all submitters equal opportunity to be heard. Each will get a 5-minute period. There will be a bill on the 4th minute. After they have submitted, there'll be an opportunity to ask questions if you wish. They are questions of clarification. It's not about debate today. It's about listening and hearing and taking note of what people have to say. I see the elected members are required to listen to feedback respectively, be open-minded, follow all meeting protocols. Questions are permitted, only ask these through the chair. Obtain information or clarification on what the speaker has presented. Limit your questions to only that which are necessary. This is a time for listening and hearing. It's not a time to agree or disagree, and it's not a time to debate. Deliberations meeting to debate any of the content of the feedback. Okay, thank you. Can I move on to the first submitter? That is Angus Ross. Welcome, Angus.
Morning.
Morning.
Bring me today. Read through my submission regarding the forestry roading targeted rate. I have here a copy of the submission we made for the original proposal to establish a targeted forestry roading rate dated 11th of March 2015. Very little has changed except in the intervening 9 years, our 39.51 hectare block of pines, we paid an additional approximately 17,500 in targeted rates, of which basically none has been spent on the approximately 2.5 kilometres of KDC maintained road. My main point in the 2015 submission was that our block of pines harvested at 28 years would produce approximately 729 tonne truck movements over the approximately 60-day harvest period, roughly 12 a day. The equivalent example of a Northland dairy farm over the same 28-year period would require approximately 8,400 truck movements, not including stock and fertiliser trucks. So the inclusion of option 4 with the inclusion of dairy and forestry on a per hectare rate makes the system fairer. Option 3, based on per hectare rather than land value, is more relevant, as land value has no connection to land usage. If option 3 is adopted, would native forests, etc. land be exempt? from the targeted rate. If option 3 is adopted, wood properties on state highways need to be exempt, as there's no need for council maintenance on those roads. My guess that only a small percentage would come into this category in the Kaipara District Council area. Option 6, with our preference for per hectare targeted rate, if any targeted rate at all, option 6 would be totally unfair. For example, 99 hectare block producing 500 tonnes per hectare is 49,500 tonne would be untargeted, and a 100 hectare block of pines producing the same amount, 500 tonne per hectare, is 50,000 tonne would be targeted. And 50,000 tonne would equivalent 1,724 truckloads. 49,500 tonne equals 1,706 truckloads at harvest. Where is the common sense in that proposal? At the moment, only forestry blocks with 100% coverage pay the targeted rate, but I know of forest blocks within KDC that because KDC have such a poor system of land use identification, the targeted rates are not being collected. Also at the moment, targeted rates are not collected off farm forestry land, and the forestry land coverage is not where the forestry land coverage is not infinite. An example of this anomaly is a property totaling 460 hectares, including 350 hectares of grazing land. In the last 7 years has harvested approximately 50 hectares of 27-year pines with 740 truck movement in that time. So who says the 100% forestry rule is? In reality, if a dairy forestry, farm forestry rate on per hectare basis was targeted with the increase of forestry in the KDC and the inclusion of dairy, the targeted rate could be reduced considerably. It must be remembered that already all produce that goes off farmland already pays large amounts of road user charges.
1 minute.
On my conclusion, the most relevant point is that KDC has not in the past and definitely needs to in the future look at organising and planning for future road usage and maintenance programs and absolutely concentrating on the efficient spend of the rates dollar. Thank you.
Angus, some questions of Angus. Councillor Paniora.
Morena, my question to you is: are you a forestry farmer, and what purpose do you grow your trees for? Is it for the carbon credits, or is it for?
It's a combination, and it's land use. You know, right tree, right land type, basically. And we've had farm forestry since 1992. So we've used a combination of both on our particular land.
Thank you.
Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Angus. You made the comment in your presentation there's no accurate monitoring of land use by KDC. Have you done previous submissions or contacted the council about that? As it seems to me to be a serious anomaly.
Certainly is. That's just true, my knowledge of the farming in KDC and forestry in it. And I know there are blocks that aren't been rated on it. I am on my one.
Yeah.
Which we did when it became 100% forestry. It was claimed in the KDC system, but I know for a fact that there are blocks that aren't getting targeted.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Further questions? Thank you, Angus, for your presentation. Sadie, is it? Okay, next on our list is available is Sadie Kogan. Thank you, Sadie. In case you weren't here, Sadie, you have 5 minutes to present, and we have an opportunity to ask you questions at the end of your presentation. Thank you.
Kia ora, my name's Sadie. I'm a local business person. I own Time 2 with my husband Desmond, and it's a bicycle shop. I went through the LTP and I was pretty concerned the fact that we're not doing anything to boost the local economy in Dargaville. My concern is that in the last few years, we've had a menswear shop closed, the shoebox is closed, 9 cafes have closed, the wool shop's closed, 2 motels, commercial hotel, backpackers, shopping on Saturday morning, ITM and Carter's are closed, Time 2 is closed. Sunday shopping, there's 1 cafe open. Tourism, the Kuma box has closed. That's Dargaville. Last few years, council has opened 2 wards to bring thousands of people to Dargaville to do what? Well, the rail cart's still rocking along, the museum, and we've got a mountain bike park, which people come to ride. And that sums up the opportunities in Dargaville. It concerns me that 4 million's been spent on 7 kilometres of trail that goes to nowhere. With no effort on the upcoming rates to help complete or maintain this. Instead, the LTP, we're voting on new projects. We haven't finished this project. New projects that are not going to improve the economy in the Kaipara, well, Dargaville, that is slowly dying. If you compare this to Whangarei and Northland, what they're doing in their economic, when you pull up economic development for Northland Regional Council, the council is keen to lift the economic performance of Northland, expanding the opportunities and raising household income. They've invested 7 million. Waitangi Mountain Bike Park had 400,000, and they're producing 6.4 million after 3 years. They're predicting 21 million after 10 years. They've put 900,000 to help complete Poherengatai. In 2019, 111,000 visitors went through that trail in 1 year. Whangarei District Council, we aim to create a thriving and prosperous economy with better work opportunities. They've filled 3,415 jobs. Kaipara, know what you want us? The economic development. Development is encouraged, supported, sustainable. Support tourism and initiatives. Dargaville's dying, slowly. So we've got a rail trail that's sitting there and it goes to nowhere. If we finish that, what would it do? What would it do to the economy here in Dargaville? We're starting 2 new projects. We're voting on 2 new projects. You haven't finished this one. Thank you, that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Sadie. Is there any questions, please? Councillor Erin Wilson-Collins, followed by Councillor Naya.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sadie, for your presentation. I hear what you're saying. Just because of your business that you run, and you're in the heart of Dargaville there and the heart of the cycling community, can you just expand a bit on the impact that you have seen with the rail trail not being finished, and the impact that that's causing with visitors to town versus if it is finished?
Yep, okay. I'm probably going to be talking to what Des is going to talk to. So basically, we get a lot of people come into the shop. We've got the NZMCA site in town here. They're rocking up with plenty of bikes on the back, plenty of money in their pockets, and they come into town because they've heard this Kaihu Valley Trail. There's not one single sign in town saying you have spent 4 million on 7 kilometres, not one sign. So they come to the bike shop and say, where are we going? They go and ride it, they get down Station Road and they come back and go, we must be going the wrong way because it just looks such a mess down here. There's no signs. tiny little signs, you've got to look for them. Come back, we send them off again. They get to the end of 7 kilometres and they come back again and say, wow, that was a waste of time coming into town. We know a lot of people who've opened up backpackers because they thought the rail trail was going to be finished. It's not finished. Ourselves, we've opened up a shuttle business. We wanted to be ready for when this opened. We thought it was going to be opened 2022, December, and that kept getting pushed out. I might be wrong on those dates, but it was either 23 or 22 that it was going to be completed. So we've got a shuttle company ready to go. We'll be employing people to run it. We did employ people to run it. We employed guides to take people along the rail trail. Things are not happening in town for that. What else? Hire companies. You look up north, there's probably 4 hire companies, bike hire companies. There's 4 shuttle companies. So it's not us. This is more people that need to be employed in town. I'm one person, that's another person. Employed. So it didn't happen.
Thank you.
Councillor Nair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week I did go to that Capel Trail Bridge with a friend of mine to have a look and went to the school. So my question is, and I take all the points you made about Dargaville on board. So whatever we have spent and whatever we have at the moment, there is no opportunity to use that 7 kilometers at all? Because I don't see any biker in the trail. This not being used at all, right?
It is being used. You do see people walking on it, cycling on it, and we approached the local farmer at the end of your 7 kilometres to go across his paddock, and he's now maintaining the paddock so that we can continue. We've put a bridge in, we've put 2 gates in. That all happened within a week of us being given the okay, and he's now maintaining it. We can now ride to our bike park, and kids do it. Especially school holidays, parents don't have to drive them out there. They just cross the main road once. So it is being used. It's being used by locals, but not by tourism.
Yeah, thank you.
And if they are using it, they're disappointed.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you, Sadie, for your presentation. List we have Tania McInnes. She's online, is that the case? Welcome, Tania. Are you familiar that you have 5 minutes to present and then there's an opportunity for questions?
Kia ora, thank you. Can you hear me?
We can, very clearly,
Awesome.
thank you.
Good morning, I'm Tania McInnes. A little bit of background about me. I've spent over a decade in local government, including 6 years as Deputy Mayor of the Far North. Also got immense experience in governance and was one of the instigators of the award-winning Focus Pie here, so understand community development. The submission that I'm presenting this morning has been presented to all 4 councils, and basically it's a call for Northland to undertake the leadership of local government reform in certain areas. I just want to start by quoting a paragraph from the review of the future of local government, which came out, I think, in June last year. The series of compounding crises we're experiencing are unlikely to abate. Climate change, the ongoing fallout from COVID-19, disruptive technological advances in the economic and geopolitical impacts of global conflict. Extreme weather events, persistent inequality, and low social cohesion are all already affecting communities here. All of these challenges are felt at place and will only intensify over the next 30 years. These events weigh heavily on the political environment and reinforce the need for strong leadership, authentic relationships, and new ways of thinking, behaving, and operating at all levels of government. The report also states local government must play a critical role in building place-based resilience that supports communities through the times ahead. This will not be possible under the current system of local government. I want to endorse a locally led, regionally enabled, and nationally supported approach. And it raises the the opportunity and the question of what genuine localism actually offers. An extract from a recently released report from the New Local, which is a UK think tank, states, there is a wealth of evidence that community-powered approaches can improve well-being, support cohesion, enable prevention, and generate savings. The value of more relational, strengths-based approaches, which can work with people in the context of their wider networks and assets, is increasingly recognised as essential for public services to fulfil their core purpose to improve lives. So what does this look like practically? And, I totally appreciate it's blinking hard work being in local government. It's a hard job. One of the recommendations in the local government reform, number 7 specifically, states, initiate a reorganisation of local government to strengthen, support and resource councils to plan for and respond to increasing challenges and opportunities to set local government up for a more complex future. And I guess my call is that if Northland, we've got a number of challenges and we've got the opportunity to lead the way in what local government reform looks like and focus on particular areas rather than having it done to us. I've outlined obviously a number of opportunities in my submission, looking at how we negotiate a regional deal that sees Northland test cased or been a guinea pig for trial approaches to how we look at efficiency and effectiveness in the way that we work alongside and do business. I'd really like to see our young people brought involved. New Zealand's losing its number 8 wire mentality, and how do we think about encouraging critical thinking and innovation approaches with our young ones. I'm going to leave it pretty well at there. I just want to finish with an Albert Einstein quote that says, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we use to create them. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Is there any questions, Tanya? Thank you very much, Tanya. Sorry, Tanya, there's a question here from Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Tanya. Tanya, interesting summation that you make. Are you aware of any of these initiatives being taken already in any other area of the country?
No, I'm not. I have raised my submission with both Local Government New Zealand, and I've also raised it with the chair of the Local Government Commission. I think, as you guys know, there's a lot of talk about this, and my concern is that we're going to continue to see costs increase if we don't sort of take the bull by the horns, really, and look at locally. I mean, one of the ideas is, how do we look at compliance costs? And how do we work across the 4 councils to look at? And building is one that comes to mind, straight away, compliance and the bureaucracy involved in trying to get things done. How do we look at sharpening that and using it as a test case to roll out? So it would be, green fields a little bit.
And if I may, supplementary, thanks, Tanya. So you're talking about some specifics and that you raise. I just wonder, Tanya, have you given any consideration to what I would consider the bigger picture of overall reform and restructure of local government in terms of having less councils rather than the number that we have now, and then work from there to these projects?
I certainly have given that some consideration, and I think there's merit in it. Obviously, Auckland's looking at it. It needs to be done wisely, but yes, I definitely think there's merit in considering what local government in Northland looks like moving forward.
Thank you.
There's another question up there, Tanya, from Councillor Vincent.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and welcome, Tanya. I wonder what do you think of the prospects that, should we go down this path, that as a pilot project, we might actually attract a bit of extra funding from central government?
I think it has to work that way. I mean, as once again, public-private partnerships approach. My concern with regional deals is that when I talk about locally led, we need to have that ownership. And so I think absolutely we must work alongside government, and they are certainly open to what regional regional and localism looks like, but I think part of that is ensuring that we, we get the final say, so to speak. But yes, I think it would, because they are interested in what it could look like. And it's such an elephant as, how do we start? And taking off bite-sized pieces, and we do it in an environment that, we can do it with, Sorry, I'll stop you.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Naya?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question, Tanya. Thank you for that. So what are your views on this regionalization when we talk about three waters done well, which means the councils have to work together to find out answers. So that's one kind of solution you're proposing.
Yes, three waters, that's a really topical one to bring up. I think that, ultimately we've all got to take our hats off. Northland is, in the big scheme of things, a small space, and we need to be playing to our strengths, and each of the different districts have different strengths. So how do we work alongside that? It's not just, the NTA is a really good example I know it's got some challenges. The NTA is a great example, but, how do we look at building consents or approaches to the RMA where, government might allow us to look outside the RMA a little bit to help support, housing, commercial development, etc., moving forward. So I definitely think we need to work together much better.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Thank you, Tanya, for your presentation.
Thank you for your time. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we welcome Des Kogan.
Hi everybody, my name is Des Kogan and I'm involved with Time to the Bike Shop down here. But we shifted here about 5 years ago, I suppose, from Mangawhai. And people were saying, what are you coming to Darg for, Tekapau? It's got all the names you can think of. And we've got a half finished bloody bike track, which that's making us embarrassed. People come in, they can't find any signage where to start this thing. There's no signs up at the go shed up the end of the road where to go. It's unbelievable, really. When you consider the amount of money these people could bring to town. MCA was the road here. Nearly every one of those vans has got bikes on it. Nearly everyone. They're all of the age, but they want to spend money. They're older people, 60, 70, 80, that just don't care. And this is what Dargaville needs, wants a bit of injection. And for an example of the Dunstan Trail down south, is in June, which is the winter time, there was 12,000 riders. And they put $10 to $12 million into the economy in June, just riding the Dunstan Trail. I think it's important this trail gets finished to a certain degree. If it gets to Kaiura, it'd be great. A great start, at least we've got somewhere to send people on this road. It's really embarrassing the way it is. If the council isn't in a position to handle this, they should at least the running of the trial and management of the trial out to a private road player or a trust or something. There needs to be something done. This can't go on. It's just a joke. That's all I've got to say, I think.
Thank you, Des. Is there any questions for Des? Councillor Naya?
That's right. Thank you, Des. Yeah, it is a priority, as you mentioned, but what I have to say, when you mentioned maintenance of the trail to be done by private operators, are there any examples of that, and would they have control of how much money they can charge people, the users?
It's probably cheaper for everyone else here to get jobs done in the council. You see, you can't. I can't believe that you spent over 4 million out here. It's just unbelievable. You know,
Thank you.
should have gone there and back.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Des, what I'm interested to know on that maintenance subject, I think that the trail's been open now for what, 18 months?
Well, so technically, yeah, I don't know, we've had that.
Yeah, or whatever. Have you seen maintenance, you know, the standard, the quality of the facility gone backwards already?
It was going backwards, so I kept bringing Amanda and complaining about it. I said, you want to get it before it gets you.
Yep.
So she got here. And they have sprayed it since, which has improved it again, you know, it's knocked the Kaikoura back. But I know Tom Malall was going to be right across.
Oh, yeah.
So the people that are spraying it did a good job, but they're done regularly, you know,
Yep.
2 or 3 times a year.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Any further questions of Des? Thank you, Des, for your presentation. Showed it. Next on our list is Richard Allspire. Should he have a person? There he is. Welcome, Richard.
You ready?
Yeah, your 5 minutes is all go.
Okay, good, thanks. I don't normally make our submissions to this council, so this is the first time. I frequently put in written submissions, but when I had a look at the written submissions that I had put in to this council, particularly in support of targeted rating for forestry, it appeared to me that the tenor of both my submissions and the attachment to the submissions was focused mainly on transport. And of course, the issue of forestry in this area is much greater than that. And that's what I want to deal with in terms of these submissions. So I'd like to expand a little on my submissions supporting targeted rates for forestry. The attachment that I gave in support of my original submissions were all related to the impact of forestry on roading costs and the fact that they under contribute. I stand by those submissions, but the impact of forestry, particularly so-called carbon forests, is much more than on roading. Its impact on the economic and social structure of the district is immediate and far-reaching. Take, for instance, the 1,000 odd hectares just behind us. 15 years ago, it was 2 dairy farms and a productive pastoral unit. Then it became 1 large dairy farm. By the end of next month, it will all be in pine trees, mining carbon. It may have been a marginal dairy farm, but it's not marginal land. Even as a dry stock unit, it would have produced 250 kilograms of carcass per hectare per year. 250 times $6 times 1,000 equals $1.5 million, which stops dead on the 1st of June. No wind down, it stops dead. Nothing will come through this town. All right? It stops dead. And if you put an economic multiplier of 4 in, and I'm not going to try and explain what economic multipliers are, you can ask Ash that. 4 is very conservative for anything that comes out of agricultural land. You do the maths of the impact of that one development on this town, and there are several of them. We're talking about 10,000 plus hectares taken out of production in this district alone in the last 3 to 4 years. The impact is already being felt in this town. You do the maths. You can figure out, the more you do the maths, the uglier it becomes. Yes, the land will still produce an income, but the district will see none of it. In the case of the block behind us, it's owned by an Australian company, which is where the proceeds will go. Straight there. No, through the businesses in town, straight there. We all lose. Now, I'm not actually arguing about the issue of climate change. I think that's real. I think we need to do things. But as an aside, the tragedy of this planning is it's not addressing the problem. The problem is our addiction to burning fossil fuels. The encouragement to replace farmland with trees is a cynical move by the nation at large to sacrifice rural communities so that they don't have to address their addiction. We will be left with an immediate shrunken economy and a potential mess environmentally and economically in 35 years' time when the carbon credits run out and you're left with a virtually worthless piece of land and a bloody great big environmental mess. To add insult to injury, the rateable value of the land will drop, meaning the remaining enterprise in the district will have to pay more to take up the slack, unless council does something through a targeted rate on forestry. It seems to me not unreasonable that forestry should at least pay the rates of the land use that they replaced.
1 minute.
The land use that they replaced. That would help council at least maintain the existing social structure of the area. Remember that rates are a tax. There is ample court proceedings to back this up. Not necessarily a service fee, it's a tax. And a forest company who can afford to take over good farmland, wreck its infrastructure, and plant pines for carbon credits can afford to pay. If not, there is no reason that the rest of the community should subsidise them. The net effect of carbon forestry taking over good agricultural land, and indeed probably the intent of its proponents, is plunder and pillage. If council fails to take remedial action through the rating system, then they will be aiding and abetting these modern day Vikings.
Thank you. Questions of Richard?
Yeah. We got back targeted rating.
Might ask.
Kanaya?
Thank you. Just a quick question.
Yep.
Are you aware of anything going throughout New Zealand against this carbon thing, which we can support as a council?
Yeah, I can. If you look at Paris 2017, where we signed off at the Paris Accord, a national government signed off the Paris Accord, the underlying theory was we should not be sacrificing good agricultural land for carbon sequestration. Like you did, we're leading the bloody world. We're taking good agricultural land, and we're not. You know, it's just daft. I'm sorry. It is ill-conceived. It is poorly planned, and it's just plain downright daft. And it is costing communities like Kaipara, Hawke's Bay, Wainuiomata, you name it. It's costing the rural community heaps, and it will cost the nation heaps, because who's going to pay the bills if you don't have this agricultural income?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Richard, there's another question up there for you. Don't get away that lightly.
Mr. Vincent, gosh, yes. Wearing your Mickey Mouse t-shirt or otherwise?
This is a, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an occasion where I feel it would be disrespectful to the members of the public who've taken the trouble to participate in the process to suggest that this is Mickey Mouse process. But my question, Richard, was thank you for what you've laid out. Do I have it right? See, he's asking a question. That what you're saying is that this whole deal with carbon farming is to as an alternative to actually reducing pollution.
It seems to me that the way in which it's done right now is we are creating a license to pollute instead of addressing the issue of the carbon of our addiction to burning fossil fuels. We're saying carry on burning it, and you can buy carbon credits, offset them in the rural community. They don't have boats up there, they don't count.
Thank you.
Question, Mark?
So Howard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Richard, it's very topical. I'm keen to understand what your understanding is on the scope of this carry on. Just even in this area or in the whole of Kaipara. I mean, you know, and the rate of expansion that you've seen, say, in the last 5 years. I mean, I don't really have any stats on that, but I think we've got to get our heads around just.
You better get your heads around it real quick. The stats are quite alarming. To my knowledge, and I can just about go out, I can't give you detail. I can tell you over the last 4 years, we've lost 10,000 hectares. I can tell you that for people that were actually planning to buy land to put into forestry, their forward planning had to say they couldn't get pine seedlings for the next 3 years. That's how much is sort of built up, this momentum. It's massive. If you don't stop it, you know, the economic activities, the economic potential, which was adequately laid out by previous two speakers here, yeah. People don't come to an area like this just to see pine trees.
No.
I hate driving between here and Whangarei now, right? It's nothing but pine trees either side. Yeah, this is going to be like driving to Kayangaroa in another 3 or 4 years' time. How many tourists come here to drive through your bloody pine trees?
And if I may ask a supplementary, and forgive me if I'm showing ignorance here, but where in your mind does the responsibility lie between local government and central government?
In this case, it's a classic example of central government deciding something without the faintest idea what the consequences were going to be for local government. We've had this experience here before in this town, all right? Somebody in central government, I'm not going to go into a lot of history, because I've got the history, I've been around for a long time, as you can see. I've got all the history, I know what happened. But between 1982 and 1984, a central government decided that there should be a forest created in the north, right? They came here, they actually established a forest of 23,500 hectares. That's Mangakahia Forest. They displaced 250,000 stock units. It was a causal factor in the downsizing of where we were freezing works. We lost ewe fares, we lost planes here, the whole flaming lot, right? And the central government didn't care. 76 farms were obliterated. Central government didn't have a clue what that was going to happen. It cost this town a lot. The same thing's going to happen again. Somebody needs to tell central government that there is a rural community.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Richard. Okay, next on the list we have Anne Karma. Have I pronounced that correctly, Anne? My apologies if I have not.
Somewhere. Sorry, settle stand. It's
399.
I've got a good break now. Yeah, to the middle. Just get this out. Aye, kia ora. I know I've only got 5 minutes, and normally I talk for a long time, but I've written everything that I wanted to say in my submission. So I'm going to give you a little bit of something to think about. While you're sitting there, I'd like you to close your eyes. Close your eyes, because I can't see if you've closed your eyes. Now I want you to think about how you're going to go to the toilet if you needed to go right now. I'm not going to give you long to think because you haven't given me long to talk. And so, was it easy? Did you think it was easy with your eyes shut to go to the toilet? And that's a simple thing for you to do. Not easy, is it? Now I'm blind, I'm deaf, and I'm old. Now, I will start off with mine. In the last 6 months, I've lived on Awakino Road, and I'm one of those blindies who like to be independent. I like to walk myself downtown. Now, coming downtown and at the road, which is part of Highway 12, I believe it is, I don't know. But as I come down and as I cross the road to the Methodist Church side of the road, there's a part there that luckily I was going slow and I didn't fall, because there's quite a dip there especially for someone who can't see. But backing back across the other side of the road before I come over, I'm also deaf. And so it is extremely hard crossing that road. Now, I'm not the only one that has difficulties. At the Methodist Church, most of them are elderly. And a lot of them would like to walk to church in the morning, and they find it hard crossing that road. Now, I'm looking at a pedestrian crossing. I know I've heard people have said, oh, they won't put a pedestrian crossing on a main road. You know, that's a lot of hogwash, because those are the roads that you need to have a crossing to make it safer for people of all kinds, not only blindies, but elderly especially. And we have a lot of elderly in Dargaville. Now you'll say, well, where's the money going to come from? I think of things outside the box, outside the square. You have people here who need community hours. 20-litre bucket of paint, paintbrushes, get them to do it. They're doing something for the community. That's one. The hump on the road, a $10 bag of ready mix concrete. And I know you're going to talk about the water flow. Put a short pipe underneath and concrete it. Yes, it's going to have to go along the footpath a little bit further, but you're not going to have the steep dip. You're going to have a gradual slant. And that, you know, even sighted people hurt themselves on it. Now, those are two of them. One more. As I come downtown, I'm also asthmatic. And so when I get downtown, I would love somewhere to sit down. I know that there are places there that you can sit, but hey, you sit down and there's no shelter. You're either going to get the rain or you're going to get that hot sun. I mean, I don't know all the places. When I come down and go straight along Victoria Street, and those are the only places that I know of, and there's only one that I know that's there. But that's the third one. So I'm looking at, sheltered seating for not only me, but for more elderly people, the ones that like to walk. And I know there's a lot of them that like to walk. And I guess that bell says that I've finished. This is worse than in a courtroom. I have to tell you, and I'm telling you this because I have worked in a courtroom. And that's why I came prepared with solutions as well. So, kia ora mai tātou.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Anne. Well said.
Anne, there's a question there. Can you hear a question?
Yep, you'll have to.
Question there, Councillor Vincent up on the screen there. Councillor Vincent, you have a question of Anne?
Got his eyes closed.
Thank you. Yes, I have two questions, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, Anne, can I open my eyes?
Well, that's up to you.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
If you want to be like me for the rest of your life, leave them closed.
Okay. Now, my other question was, have you made contact with the council through the service desk in the council offices with your requests?
No, it wasn't until the panel came out to Te Ha and they were talking there, because I've only been in Dargaville 2 years now, and until they came, I didn't know what to do. I just muddled along, as most people would do because they don't know what to do. So
Okay.
that's answered the first question. What's the second?
And then my second question was, have you been to the visit the council office to actually lodge your service requests?
No, that's what, I mean, that's the same question. Have I been to the council office? No, I haven't.
And my first question was, can I open my eyes?
Yeah, because, you know, how many people in Dargaville know exactly what they should be doing? And until the panel came out, and that's a biggie, if the panel comes out more often, people will know what they need to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that it?
That's
Another
it. Thank you.
question, another question there, Anne,
And
from councillor Naya.
before you go, Ash Nair, you can't see me, but the point you raised are very valid and has been raised by other people. Would you be interested in joining some group of people who can make changes in Dargaville? Would you be like to be a part of a group to make, because the shelter thing, all those things, rather than one person, would you be keen on joining a group?
You know, I join a lot of groups. But, you know, when a blind person joins a group, the majority of that group think, oh, they're useless. They can't do anything. And that's what we have to put up with.
Okay.
And so, hence the reason when you guys came out to Te Ha, I decided I'm not going to sit there and just tell somebody what I want to do. I hopped online and I sent mine through that way. And it was awesome because Kelly's been communicating with me. See, because I can see a little bit, but I have to have my computer screen 500% bigger so I can at least, when I've got my face up to the screen, I can see a little bit.
No, I really appreciate you coming here and opening eyes of people who have eyes open, you know. Thank you.
Yeah. And one more question here from councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Anne, and I endorse what councillor Nay has just said. Thank you so much for coming and opening our eyes. I'm going to, it's more a statement than it is a question, but we're going to make sure that something happens, at least from a service desk inquiry, that I'll table myself and have somebody from the council get in touch with you. Maybe there's a group.
This is not the place.
No.
Clarification.
I'm just making a statement.
Okay.
So, thank you, Anne. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Anne. Okay, next on our list is Albert Walters. Welcome, Albert.
Oops, hooked up. Yes, I'm there.
Was. Okay.
Do you want to sit or stand?
I'll stand. Yeah. Kia ora, everybody. That previous speaker stole my thunder. I wrote, when that panel came to Te Ha and I explained to them that I like walking all over town, and I noticed when I'm walking around, there's no places to sit in the main street. When you're out walking, exercising there, and you want to sit down somewhere, there's nowhere to sit. If it's raining, you've got seating there, but it's out in the weather. One is down by the Northern Wairau Hotel, and the other one is up the other end by the outside the dry cleaners. And then you got no seating under cover. And I thought, need to do something about this, because
the only time you'll get a seat over there is from outside the eating places, cafes and that. And I know a lot of people walk around town during the day shopping, doing their shopping, and they'd love to have somewhere to sit down and have a natter and a bit of maybe a takeaway or something and chair and talk. So that was what I was wanting to board to notice. And then the other thing was in my walking around town, I walked down by the Caltex garage. And then when you walk around there, there's a footpath there. When you come back from, I walk out here to the Mangawhari shops right out there and back again. And so when I walk back into town, go back into along where the Caltex garage is, there's a footpath there. But because there's no curbing there, the cars run up onto the footpath and then there's, you can't get past the cars there. So to me, the easy solution would be either the council paint the no parking lines beside the footpath or put a rail in there or something to stop the cars from running up onto the footpath to cut it off. Because there's only a low curb there, the motorists just take it on their thing to run right up against the fence that's there or the wall, and there's no more footpath. So they have to get out on the side of the cars and walk down and then join back up with the footpath. But what about the people on the scooters? All the disabled people, that, and the ladies with the prams and pushchairs and that. They're all got to get off because motorists can just run up onto the thing and cut off the footpath. To me, the easiest solution would be the council to paint the lines on the side of the footpath where it says no parking. Easy, eh? That's what I like. Any questions?
Questions of Albert, please. Councillor Erin Wilson-Collins.
Thank you. Kia ora, Albert. Thank
Kia ora.
you for your submission. I just want to clarify, you're talking about cars parking on the footpath,
Yeah.
aren't you? And blocking the footpath?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the idea of a footpath is for, like you say, walkers, scooters,
Yeah.
prams.
Yeah,
All right. Well, appreciate your time.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Albert, for
Thank you.
presenting.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our list is Marissa Palmer from Chasers Gorge Camp Club trustee. Is that correct?
Hi,
Welcome.
I'm Marissa Palmer. I'm a director, shareholder and secretary for Chasers Gorge Camp Club. This is Ridley. He is also a director and shareholder of Chasers Gorge Camp Club. The other two directors, Graham Ramsey and Simon Jones, contributed to our submission, but are not able to be here today, unfortunately. I think 1, 2 and 3 of our submission pretty clear cut. We would like to talk about 4 and 5. We, as a camp club, own land on both sides of the entranceway to the Bailey's Beach entrance to Riparoa, and have been really pushing for a connectivity solution to some of the issues out there. There was a connectivity project started with
Amanda Bennett, and it involved Bailey's Beach Society, the Camp Club, the Community Hall, the Highland Centre, and some other people from the community, and we used to meet regularly. discussed with Amanda, but a couple of times a year, council elected and staff members. It's just ended. We weren't told why or.
There was no courtesy from the council to people who volunteered for this. Amanda seems to have dropped off the face of the earth. You would just like to know what's going on. Is it still fine?
It did all our work, inform any reports or decision making or future planning or funding stuff, because we all put in a lot of time. We talked about issues of the wider Bailey's Beach area, traffic flow, traffic safety, footpaths. Our concern is the people who own both sides of the driveway onto the beach was driver behaviour, terrible condition of the sand and the creek bed. Does the council supported public entrance onto 107 kilometre beach. Very popular, thousands of people use it. There may be only 300 permanent residents at Bailey's Beach, but it's probably the fastest growing area on the west coast of the Kaipara. We are asking on behalf of all beach users and all residents in Dargaville and everywhere that more consideration be given, better answers given, and more action given when locals have helped pull a car out of a hole in the beach access or whatever. So, yeah, those are our concerns about item 4.
Yeah, item 5, there are new toilets and the extension of the boardwalk is proposed out there. We met on the 9th of April with John McCann and Darren James from Hoskins Civil, and we've heard nothing since. Talk about the existing toilets that were condemned in 2013, I think, and are still being used, to keep some structure there, decommission the toilet, of course, but keep some structure for a notice board, a seat, which won't be a covered seat, as a community information centre visitors mainly, to give them some information about the dangers of the beach and
And the vision was really for an open 3 structure, just keep the concrete walls, the shell of
existing
the current
toilets, yeah.
structure there, have seats, and then we can put up the plaque to the Elsameni shipwreck and information about beach safety.
And we've heard nothing back. I mean, that was over a month ago that we were told we were going to be kept informed within a few weeks.
And that also went for the boardwalk. We were told there was and this has possibly happened, and we haven't been notified, or it hasn't happened, a retrospective resource consent or building consent, because there wasn't one for the existing boardwalk, but also there was a resource consent in the process for an extension of the boardwalk, which I understand the council has money for through the tourism. Yeah.
The other thing that the council was also looking at was stabilising the area under the boardwalk with rocks, with the sweeps coming in and the stream. It does get moved around. We haven't had a grader out for a wee while. That used to be on a monthly basis back in the day. Now you have to go through the service request area, which seems to take forever. We also have some huge potholes on the road, which are actually quite dangerous to vehicles trying to pass. They do end up going up on the temporary footpath to pass so that they avoid the potholes. We've had service requests in several times over this, which is still, nothing's happened. So we just feel that we're being not kept informed. I mean, it's a very popular area, not so much in winter, Hoons more in winter, but families and tourists in the summer.
The whole area needs a beautification concept, which we thought we were getting to with the map, but then we've, you know, just been, it ended. But I think as people responsible for your council and the way it is perceived by outsiders, but more importantly, the way it's used by the community that lives there, we shouldn't have to look after it as much as we do, and the whole community should feel a bit more pride if it became a place that looked nice to visit.
Thank you. Question, Councillor Nair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much, Ms. Mink, for here. And I mean, listening is not a pleasure if you listen to this, obviously, these complaints. But are you working together with Bailey's Beach? Because I would love to come to their meeting. We did it in some meetings, but nothing is happening. Are you in touch with any of the councillor or any? I'm happy to come and sort out the problems.
Have any councillors wanted to keep in touch with us? We were the ones that put our time and effort to our council organised process, the connectivity plan, and we do still talk to people at Bailey's Beach, but there is no formal.
No. There was a change in leadership, I suppose, at Bailey's Beach Society, because one of the head ladies passed away. So I think the lady who has taken over from the Bailey's Beach Society is getting a head around it. But I have been in contact with her about connectivity, and she seems to think that it's all sort of disappeared as well. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's good to know. Thank you.
Councillor Paniora.
I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time this morning to come and present to us. I feel really uncomfortable because we're under Section 82(1)(e) of the Local Government Act, and so we can't actually engage specifically in your concerns. We can only hear and seek clarification, but hopefully we can carry the conversations on with the staff afterwards about your concerns and getting some updates. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, we are all interested in keeping the place, you know, looking good and going and rubbish off the beach, and yeah, we do that all the time. And yeah, I report to the police if there's hoons and people driving helmets or children appropriately sitting on vehicles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Okay, next on our list is Willie Paniora. Willie?
Morning, everyone. Firstly, thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to speak to my submission, which relates to the rateable monies for the CCTV cameras here in the Kaipara. A little bit about myself, those that there's familiar faces around the room, but I'm Willie Paniora, born and raised here in Kaipara. Currently serving, obviously, as a police officer in a sole charge role, frontline Ruawai. I've been in that role for the last 16 years. In relation to my submission, as I assume the room knows, there is an annual set amount, amount of $58,829 that has been collected by Kaipara District Council for this, the CCTV cameras in Kaipara. Where we are is that Ruawai is struggling to access those monies, which is currently being managed by DCDB. And my hope is to persuade the room that Ruawai is more than capable of managing their contribution to the collectible rate. Of note, as I understand it, it was budgeted on 12%. Sorry, it was $12,000. $12,000 of that collectible monies was allocated for Ruawai. As I assume RPDG currently managing the CCTV cameras in Ruawai have already had the opportunity to speak to council. Maybe answer any questions at the end of this, obviously. What else is there? To just as a comparison, the Dargaville community currently, or Dargaville itself, currently has 37 CCTV cameras, as I understand it. Ruawai has 14 CCTV cameras. Out of those 14, we have 2 AMPR cameras capabilities, and they are the ones that can read license plate numbers and are set up on the state highway, and they read both traffic coming north and south. That's pretty much it. The money is currently being controlled by DCDB, and we're struggling with that to access the monies. I believe we require it. We've got good systems in place to deal with it. That's it.
Thank you, Willie. Questions, Councillor Lambeth, followed by Councillor Aaron Wilson.
And me.
And Councillor Nair.
Thank you.
Thank you, through the Mayor. Councillor Peniora, could you please tell me or inform the group here on how much it costs to set up the Ruawai system, how you did it, and a little bit of history to that?
Yep. So it was initiated at the end of 2021. Myself and RPDG got together, basically brainstormed, and as a result of that, we were able to self-fund or raise $30,000 within a 4-month period. So we were able to, from planning to completion, install the first and second stage of the CCTV system in Ruawai in that time frame. So it was all self-funded out of Ruawai. And in 2022, we doubled the capacity of our cameras and raised additional money, which bumped it up to around just north of $40,000. Again, all self-funded, and that doubled our capacity with CCTV cameras for Ruawai. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, in a way, and the effect that it's had with your crime stats and that, and any little bespoke little stories that you've got of unique things that how it worked for you?
Yeah. You know, as you can appreciate, being the sole charge officer for my Ruawai community, it's just me. So having the ability with these cameras, it's just additional eyes and ears to the ground. It obviously has all the benefits of giving that reassurance to the community as word quickly spreads and advertised and out the cameras. So that's been very beneficial for our community, as it has up here in Dargaville. We've had some really good results recovering stolen vehicles, dealing with serious offenders, tracking, arresting. Yeah, it's a magic bit of kit, which we're currently managing.
Aaron Wilson Collins.
Thank you. Thanks, Willie, for your presentation. You might have just answered one of my questions with answering Gordon's question, and that is that the viewing of the cameras in Ruawai is done at your station in Ruawai, not in Dargaville?
Yeah. So all the hardware and everything is held in Ruawai, and similar to Everything is held here in the Dargaville station. Everything would always held in the the Urunga station.
Great. And then my next question is, I have visited the Dargaville setup, and one of the things that they commented on, I just want to confirm with you if this is correct, is the benefit is not just for your local community, but for policing. If you've got someone escaping a crime from another area coming through, you've mentioned the license plate reading technology. There's a larger benefit, is there?
Yeah, absolutely. Because of the ANPR cameras in particular, where they have that ability to read plates, to log them. We have then the ability to see it in real time, but to bring the information back up once we log onto the system. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And then the additional cameras, they are very similar. They can track foot traffic and the individual, whatever, vehicles, bikes, you name it. It's just, yeah, it's incredible. And our technology, our system is even improved on the Dargaville system. It's such a minimal cost compared to what Dargaville had to go through.
And then just my final question, if I may, is just on the actual money itself and your submission that you're speaking to. So you said in your presentation that $12,000 of that annual targeted rate money is meant to be earmarked for Ruawai. Are we being advised that that is not going to Ruawai?
Yeah, that's right. So that figure, as I understand it, that will come from DCDB. Yeah, we're struggling to get support.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, thank you, Willie. And you're the solo operator of a very big operation, coming and making it personal commitment. This is a matter which has to be resolved. It was presented before, you rightly said. So we'll take up, we'll see what we can do on that. Anyway, I think the time is up. I see the bell ringing.
Did you have a question?
The question was related to is, have you had any communication on that is not being helped at the council level? Have you actually written anything afterwards, after the presentation?
Sorry, can you?
So Bruce, I guess, presented
yes,
one of the meetings, and he raised a thing that this is not happening, and it's a shame that we are listening again from you. So has there been any communication from your side on that ground? And what's stopping it? Have you heard anything?
Yeah, a good question. How much time have we got? There's been phone conversations, emails back and forth from RPDG and DCDB, and to a certain extent with KDC as well. And the hurdle we currently are facing are with DCDG.
Thank you, Willie.
You've only been back for a short time, haven't you? You've been away for a while.
Yes.
So
catch up with it.
Yeah.
On me.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, Will.
Thanks, Willie.
Okay, as time will allow, we'll have a 20-minute break for.
Well, so Vincent back at 10.
How many minutes?
40.
20.
We'll go. Okay, welcome back to the long-term plan 2024-2027 hearings. Next on our list of submitters is the jointly submitting, I understand, Joanne Floyd and Rose Dixon. Welcome, Joanne and Rose. Yours.
Kia ora, councillors, community members and our mayor and the chief executive, presumably. My name is Rose and I'm the chair of the Ratepayers Association that's newly established here in Dargaville only a few weeks ago. We've got close to 400 members just in the last 3 weeks. And I also want to introduce Jo, who is our vice chair, very valued member who has a great lot of knowledge when it comes to infrastructure. She's actually an infrastructure engineer. So, to begin, I'd just like to say that Dargaville is a town brimming with potential, but facing some challenges, as you all know. One major concern is the lack of investment in our infrastructure. Development contributions seem excessively low here when compared to other regions, which raises a question. Why aren't these funds helping to extend the water supply pipeline or storage, something we in Dargaville desperately need? Why are the rates soaring with no spending in sight for Dargaville specifically? Dargaville is a small, friendly town with loads of potential. There is plenty of scope for improvement with the inexpensive improvements such as better maintenance of the reserves, stop bank maintenance, footpaths and roads, while the longer term planning is carried out for bigger scale work such as the water supply pipeline. Council should work with the NRC to reduce widespread unpleasant odour experienced on occasions, presumably from the meatworks. This is not a good look for our town. However, the biggest thorn in everyone's side, it's not me, it's the proposed rate hike. We've heard whispers of residents considering leaving our town, selling up their properties and moving away because they simply can't afford the rate hikes. We've even had people tell us that family members living in affluent areas such as Remuera and Auckland are paying a similar set of rates to some of those here in Dargaville, which we feel is simply unfair. Therefore, we propose a different approach as outlined in our submission. Instead of a sharp increase in the first year, we would like Council to adopt the smaller increase first and gradually increase rates over the 3 years by smaller increments than those proposed in the long-term plan. This makes it more manageable for everyone. Now, I'd like to shift gears and discuss the topic of resilience funding. Imagine this. You're strolling down Dargaville's main street, sun on your face, and whoops, you're up to your ankle in the Northern Wairoa River. It's not ideal, right? Unfortunately, it's actually happened to me a couple of times in the last few years that I've lived here. And it is a gentle reminder that we are vulnerable because with our CBD perched in a flood zone, it's a bit like living with an unpredictable toddler. You never know when it will decide to throw a tantrum and flood the living room. I've got a few and I know what the cleanup's like when a toddler's made a big mess, and it's hard work, and I can only imagine what a flood of a much bigger scale than what Cyclone Gabriel caused 2 years ago could potentially cause to us. So in our case, that living room could be our sole petrol stations, supermarkets and building supply stores, because all of them are located alongside the river. Cyclone Gabriel was one such toddler that hit at a time when we weren't experiencing high tides, but can you imagine if it did hit during high tide or king tides? This is one of the reasons why we need to build a resilient community and district, why we need town planning for future subdivisions and to future-proof the infrastructure we already have. We believe that by investing in this fund, that the council can then apply to central government for further financial aid that could result in potentially millions of dollars that would improve our infrastructure and that would ultimately save us from environmental and potentially economic devastation. Now, I do realise that our council is facing cost pressures and are doing everything they can to keep costs down, and I thank you for that. But I would argue that this cost of the Resilience Fund is actually minuscule in comparison to the investment needed in our infrastructure to make us resilient. Therefore, I would strongly urge councillors to not lose sight of the forest for the trees. I also realise there are those here who do not believe in global warming, and I just wish to declare that I'm not here to judge anyone for their personal beliefs. But I also understand that those who believe in global warming still also believe that climate change catastrophes can and do happen. So I think that's where we can find us some common ground. And I'm sure you would agree that we need to do what we can to minimise the potential impact of a severe catastrophe that could happen, whether you believe in climate change or not, and not bury our heads in the sand, which could come at may not come at our expense, but may come at the expense of our children and grandchildren. Is that what we want? Lastly, I just wish to conclude with this quote. They say a well-planned town is like a well-conditioned body, prepared to weather any storm. Thank you.
Any questions? Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Rose. If I hear you correctly, and like us to, your issue is the rate increase, and you made one. Yet you would like us to add to that by adding in the climate adaptation fee. How would you propose that we go about funding them?
My understanding was that if we were to go with the 500k, that equates to something like $9 per ratepayer per year spread across the district.
1.25% on rates.
Yeah, so I feel like that's doable for our region.
Yet we don't, you're not happy with the increase that we have already.
I'm saying allow for an increase, but start with the smallest increase first.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councillor Norton-Collins.
Thank you. Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Joe. Joe, I just was interested to hear what your main concern is in support of Rose's application.
I was going to carry on and just the things in the submit. Got any more direct questions for Rose? Because
can I actually ask a procedural question?
Sure.
So I see that Joe and Rose are separate on our open minutes each. But are they getting 5
Well, you must admit, so they'll get 5 minutes each, but we're just doing one questions, then the other.
Thank you. That wasn't clear. I'll pause and wait for your we'll finish, Rose, and then I'll wait to. No.
We're sort of sharing things.
Thank you.
That's how we
good.
Yeah.
Yes.
So your question, Councillor Nair?
Thank you. Thank you, Rose, for coming, and quite glad to know that you're bringing all that together, 400 people, and bringing Dargaville to life again. So actually, I just wish you the very best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Can we please restrict ourselves to questions, not statements? Any other questions?
Oh, I have a
Councillor Paniora?
Through the chair, it's kind of moving on from sort of the question around the increases to allow for, hypothetically, if this was to be incorporated into the budget, what other things do you think this should be prioritised over that can be removed out of it? Have you had a look in depth into the proposed LTP? And
Jo is going to speak to a lot of that. She's got some really great ideas on cost savings around infrastructure.
Because we only have so much money and so it's a case of what.
Yeah, like one of our points in the submission too was around funding as well. The fact that the government is looking to bring in the new version of Three Waters, and the fact that in that first year there's a lot of unknowns, and so we feel like it doesn't make sense to start with the highest rate rise first when we don't know potentially what that funding might look like. And what was the other thing I was going to say? Yeah.
No, I understand that. Cool, thank you.
Further questions? Thank you very much. Did you say you were going to present now, Joan, or have you completed a joint one?
Yes, I'm sort of carrying on.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
That's how we worked it, because I sort of supported the DORA's submission in my submission. So just to probably give us a little bit more time.
Oh, go for it.
So yeah, just carrying on infrastructure concerns. I mean, it's a changing situation, as we've just learnt, that Watercare is now being split off from Auckland Council, and they don't want a bar of Northland. So we really don't know where we're at with the Three Waters. But so in general, I really feel that Kaipara needs to get on with their planning as if they've got waters for good. I'm sure Whangarei wouldn't be particularly happy about picking up Kaipara's problems either. So, there's obviously room for negotiations and that, but I think it's the smart thing to do is to just, work smartly about, how you're going to resolve these issues. Clearly, you've got some commitments through resource consents for the Mangawai treatment plant and all that sort of thing you've got to commit to, and that will probably be absorbing a lot of funding. So I understand that without actually knowing the detail, because I don't profess to, but I understand how those systems work. But I think what we really want to come to is, what do we really have to do in the next few years? Because we've got a recession going on, it's pushing the rates up. What can we actually postpone? It's not to say we don't plan for it, because I think we absolutely do need to be doing the planning, but we don't need to be, what we don't have to do, such as sort of the nice to haves, we should be looking at sort of pushing those into the later stages of the LTP or into the 3 to 10 year program rather than the first 3 years. I've had a lot to do with asset management myself in the past, so I know how much of a juggling exercise it is. I guess in a way, I'm glad we've now got the Ratepayers Association, that we're hoping that we can work more closely with council. So when it comes to sort of juggling those decisions, we can be involved rather than it just being a one-off. We see you once a year on the annual plan. It'd be really good to actually have this sort of more closer discussion when there are decisions to be made and that sort of thing. Anyway, I don't want to go on and on about that, but there's one key thing that we felt was important in the LTP was that there's a lot of expenditure on roading we see, yet it wasn't really exactly clear where that expenditure was. I mean, I suppose this is more of a question than anything else, but we would see that probably that would be taking a big chunk of the rates. So, but it's difficult for us to actually know, to say, what you can change on that, because there's not enough detail in there, but realizing there is a lot of repair that needs to happen. We talk about sort of the treatment plant and potentially planning for the future improvements of our treatment plants so that we can improve the quality of the water discharge. It's a planning exercise, we realize at this point, but it's something that we definitely want to be seeing, to be going into that planning. I have had a look at the previous asset management plans and see that there was intention to be making improvements for growth at some point. So, it would be really good to be working with council on what's going to be happening there. And the other thing I don't think we talked about was roading was, the roading I mentioned was, is there opportunity in there for central government's assistance with the roading? because there are so many issues for such a small council, if you like, it's a large area, small population. So, and we've got huge costs of repairs for the roads. So, you know, we wish that, you know, council would advocate for that central government funding. Another point I just wanted to have on what's still going is the library and parks. That part of our submission is we do strongly oppose having a targeted rate at this time, because that appears to be one of the big things that's pushing the rates up hugely for Dargaville. Understanding though there is always the issues of fairness. So we're happy to sort of work with, you know, maybe other ways of doing things. So yeah, and then I guess there's some other little issues as well. We have about some safety issues around the park, some low-hanging fruit, if you like, little things that could be done, like fencing and advocating for a pedestrian crossing by the park or to NZTA. These sort of things we don't see as being a huge cost to council. And I think overall, I'd like to say, let's look for the low-hanging fruit and see what we can do to help our little town to be a marvellous little town that it could be without having to spend the big bucks, because we know that that's pretty hard to do everything. So let's look for the good stuff. You know, things that people don't see, I guess, are the renewals that need to happen for the water pipelines and all that sort of thing, because where we get a lot of leaks, we have very difficult ground conditions in Dargaville, so we know we've got problems there. But we still need to carry on doing those things because you can't just keep putting them off and putting them off. So anyway, I will end it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There's a question.
Too much.
Question up there from Councillor Vincent.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I have two, and I'm not sure whether this would be better answered by Joanne or Rose, actually. But I'll just put it out there. Firstly, do you think that the council's intended massive rate rise, which I can assure you no one's happy with in the room where you are, myself included too, do you think that has actually helped boost the numbers wanting to join up and become members of this new Dargaville Ratepayers Residents Group?
Yes, definitely.
Surely, without a doubt, I'm sure. Yeah, which is a good thing for the community, because the more people that were involved with the association, the better, because for a long time we haven't had one, and I feel that as a result, council haven't really heard the wants and needs of the community, and that's what we're starting to hear a lot of. And if we can convey that back to council members, then I think that's a really positive thing for our community going forward.
Okay, so that's wants and needs, and I'm wondering along the lines of well, John F. Kennedy, and saying, you know, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. So it sounds like on one hand you're asking for, so what can the council do for us? What can you do for the council?
Yeah, well, we're doing a few things. For the council, I feel like we're able to communicate the needs of the community to council, that they didn't really have that before. We're hosting a few meetings coming up, and we'd like to have council members come and talk to the community, dispel myths and that sort of thing. We've got a community patrol meeting coming up to try and encourage local community members to become a part of that patrol. Yeah, and just get people interested in local government issues and get them educated and informed as well, and help council in that regard to do so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you very much.
Councillor Naya.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, thank you to Rose and thank you to Joe. Answering our fellow councillors' questions, you well answered. I mean, we need you actually. It's not what you can do for us. You can do a lot. But my question is especially to Joe. You mentioned she has local government experience in infrastructures, and would you be happy to give us few hours when we need it in terms of Dargaville projects, how we can get more funding from central government, as you alluded to.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, ladies. Joanne, to your question specifically that you raised about government subsidies on roading, may I ask, are you aware that the huge majority of our roading is subsidised very substantially already?
I realise that you have a huge amount of funding from NZTA already.
Yeah, you do. Okay.
Absolutely. So what we're seeing here is only half of the cost, if you like, of what it would cost Kaipara otherwise.
Well,
so more or less. So
even less.
yeah, so it just shows the scale of the problem.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
but Kaipara is not the only council that receives that funding. That's basically taken from licence fees.
That's, yeah. Just the question was.
Additional, yes, so I am aware of that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Council roads as opposed to the state highways.
That's as opposed to state highways.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're only talking council roads.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Councillor Erin Wilson-Collins.
Thank you. Just Joe, you referred to a park. I assume you were talking about Selwyn Park?
Yes, sorry. Yes, Selwyn Park.
That's okay. And so what was the low hanging fruit there? You said something about improvements to the.
Yeah, just basically because it's right next to the state highway, there's just, and you've got the skate park there. It's probably very open to the road. And obviously, as you know, you get a lot of heavy vehicles through there. So that just the idea that maybe some strategically placed fencing would be a really good idea. And also a safe crossing point, because at the moment there is a crossing point way down at the one end. But up by the pool's end, there's nothing there. And there's no zebra crossing either. So I know, NZTA probably would not be, they would want minimalistic disruption of their traffic, but we've still got to fight for what we need for our community because their road goes through our community.
Nice, thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you for having us.
Rob, what? Welcome, Rob. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Mr Mayor, the council, thanks. Thanks for this opportunity to speak to my submission. My name's Rob Watmore, as you've heard, and I have a small enterprise called Anyone Can Pedal. If you can't hear me, just wave to me because I do speak politely. So Anyone Can Pedal is about getting people on bikes. Now, I'm not a resident, but with my wife Fiona, we've had long connections with the Kaipara district, probably going back 42 years. And what my submission is doing is requesting support to fund the Northland Regional Trails Project. And specific to the Kaipara district, this would really mean completing the Kaihu Valley Rail Trail Phase 2. Now, for many years, I've had a strong interest with cycling in this area. I'd like to make some of you. Now, I did a few things. I've organised the Donnelly's Crossing mountain bike ride up north a few years ago. And that was on the old rail formation up by Donnelly's Crossing to Moy. I was actively involved in the early Kaihu Valley Rail Trail. Oh, you can't hear me, sorry. I was actually involved in the Kaihu Valley Rail Trail discussions a few years ago, in the early days. And more recently, I've been running these bike studios in Paparoa. So why am I doing these things? Well, I've always seen the potential benefits to the Kaipara area. And I think a rail trail will bring riders who will then want food, accommodation, and all the other facilities. So you've got a real potential for economic benefits to existing businesses and to new ones as well. I also believe that cycling can provide social and health benefits for local people. So one of the things I do through Anyone Can Pedal is I help people who want to start cycling or get back on the bike. It's a bit of a mission. And often the reason is to improve their health, improve their lifestyle. And sometimes even health practitioners like my wife, who's a nurse, she'll prescribe cycling as a green prescription. And it's quite interesting how it changes people. It's really, get on the bike. And I think having pleasant, family-friendly places to ride is essential to this lifestyle change. You know, something this flat and you can just keep riding. And in my experience, cycling and its health benefits will snowball when they're good, accessible places to ride. There seems to be a thing about cycling. You start, and I'm talking from experience here, you start riding and you do a few Ks and you have a wait and you think, I can't do this, I can't do this. And with a few months, you're doing 20, 50 Ks. It's quite addictive. Some people nodding their heads. And I'm the same. That's how it was for me when I was in my 40s. And I think, to me, the Piper Valley Rail Trail ticks these boxes. It's flat, it's accessible, and needs to be finished. Because what's going to happen, people are going to be riding, and they get as far as Babylon Coast Road, and then they might want to go further. So, it's real good. Right? So you've got a real kind of benefit to people's health out here as well. And so you need to get that finished. For the existing cyclists who just come up here and just want to do a ride, but the people are getting into it as well. There's a real opportunity. Now, I feel a bit cheeky as a non-resident or ratepayer asking you to help. But Fiona and I think of moving here along with my cycling enterprise. We carried a passion and a belief in this area for a very long time. And we see how investing in cycling in the Kuiper can really bring huge benefits to this beautiful area. To quote a former mayor who was around a long time ago, he used to say Dargaville can do it. And I think he was right. I really do. So thanks for listening to my short submission, and if there's any questions, here I am.
Questions? Councillor Erin Wilson-Goals.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your submission and your energy. I just want to, can I just summarise from what I'm hearing? We've heard some submissions earlier this morning as well about the Kaihu Valley Trail. So am I correct in what I'm hearing is that the benefit of finishing this trail is economic and well-being?
Absolutely.
For both locals and tourists?
You got a double whammy, essentially. So when I did the Otago Rail Trail a few years ago, I was just amazed. We were strangers in somebody else's, we're all here, somebody else's land. And they were just so friendly to us. I thought, what's going on here? We'd buy a pie, and we were an income stream. It's as simple as that. I can see the same sort of parallel up here. You know, when I go up to Donny's Crossing, and there's no way to get food. You got the Kaihu pie place, Gareth's place, but you know, there's a real need. But as those businesses start up, or the existing ones will keep going, you're going to bring money to this place, I reckon. Been thinking about that for years. And with the green prescription, yes, that's we often work with homeless people down in Auckland. My wife and I, she works for the mission, Auckland City Mission, I would work as this. And you can just see the change in people's lives. They get on the bike, and it's a real morale boosting thing. It's not just riding the bike, it's learning how to fix it sometimes as well. That's what I do. I teach people that. And it just does something to people's, souls. It really does. They get healthy, lose weight. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you, Councillor Nair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Rob, for two questions. One, obviously, what is hop-up bike do in Papua? Is it?
So I turn up somewhere. I'm going to do one in an industrial park in a few weeks. I just have some bike tools. I have a few bike stands. And ideally, they'll bring their bikes and I'll show them how to fix their own bikes. In reality, often I'll just be fixing them. But often it's just giving people advice to how to ride a bike. You're quite overweight, just ride a couple of Ks to begin with, work into it. Or this is where the bike trails are. Trail just across the road, that kind of stuff.
So just supplemented that. So would you take it a bit further, because you have some visionary ideas on Northland trails and Dunley Crossing, walking and cycling, paper roads and whatnot.
Yes.
Would you be able to send something? I'm happy to give you my card.
Absolutely.
Some ideas we can actually implement or try to implement.
I have tons of ideas. You give me an email.
Thank you.
Written down. Rob. Okay. Is that it? Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Okay, next on our is Tanya G. Brown. I got that pronunciation correct, Tanya? Thank you.
Kia ora koutou katoa. My name is Tanya Whetu Bracey Brown. I moved here to Kaipara 4 years ago to manage Kumarani Productions Trust, also known as Circus Kumarani. Just in case anyone in the room is not familiar, Circus Kumarani provides community circus for all ages and abilities across both Kaipara and Whangarei districts. We are the longest running circus in Aotearoa, New Zealand, outside of a city centre, which is a claim to fame I feel is slept on for Kaipara. And I would like to extend a huge thank you to the council and to the wider Kaipara community for the fact that we exist here and continue to exist. And we would like to, you know, continue to exist well into the future as well. I'm here to speak on behalf of the organisation today, and our community are really, really excited at the prospect of new recreational and community hubs being developed in both Dargaville and Mangawhai. We are limited at the moment with suitable venues to provide some of our services, and we know that there's a demand that we're unable to meet just because there aren't spaces that we can use. So I have already submitted through all of the consultation processes that I have been able to so far with regards to that development, but I'm also here to speak to you at the top and say we would love to be involved in that design process and have the opportunity to speak to architects, because there are elements of design which are very easy to incorporate and wouldn't add additional cost on if we get that opportunity to speak to the architects, but then to retrofit down the line becomes a lot more unfeasible, which is why we can't, you know, retrofit an existing space that we have. So yeah, we would love to see those spaces developed. As well as speaking for the circus community, in my role as manager of Kumarani, we both facilitate and attend various different youth and community service provider networks. And there have been repeated calls for a need for youth hubs. I'm a millennial, I'm not a youth, so I wouldn't presume to speak on their behalf, but I would strongly encourage the council to have a dedicated process to involve youth in the design of these new community spaces so that they do you know, get utilised, and also looking at the benefits of having third spaces for our communities. So that is spaces outside of our work, school and home environments where communities can freely gather to connect, and that builds wellbeing and resilience. Recognise that the council is facing a difficult economic climate and that you do have tough decisions to make. And so I'm really here just to advocate on behalf of arts, culture, recreation, that those are still important priorities to have on the council table. Recognise there will be constraints in when and how those are delivered, but not to let those drop off because they are vital to our community wellbeing. And oh, I think I talked really fast, so I hope you caught all of that. But I would also like to take this opportunity to invite all of you to Kumarani's 21st birthday party, which is happening on the 6th of July at Dargaville High School, to, you know, see what that looks like with regards to what we do in our communities and what we are uplifting and building wellbeing for. To take a little bit of a side, I wouldn't presume that this is my community, my circus community's opinion here, but I would also, as a ratepayer, like to advocate for continued focus on environmental resilience for Kaipara, because yeah, we do see the flooding. I was unable to leave my property for a couple of weeks over the cyclone, and yeah, that is still a priority that should be on the table for council as well. Yeah. I just talked really fast there.
Okay, questions, Tanya? So Naya.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And now, thanks, Tanya, we met a couple of times. Thanks for coming and presenting. And my question is more like, I mean, you're doing an awesome job, awesome, no doubt about that. But, do you have any funding at all? Because you're operating from a very small house, a big operation.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, how do you actually support yourself?
So we are predominantly, our operations are funded through grant funding, including some funds from the KDC, both for project funding through CCS, which is funding our 21st, and for the community fund we apply to Kaipara District Council for. And then our classes and programs and shows all run at cost because we're able to charge for those. But we do run on the skin of our teeth and the love of arts and our community. So that is how we are here.
Great, thank you for that. We'll definitely come on 6th of July, I guess, all of us.
Thank you, Councillor Erin Wilson-Collins.
Thank you. Kia ora, Tanya. Thank you for your submission. Just what you've presented this morning and your submission that I've read previously. Can you just expand? So you're speaking about Circus wanting to be involved in the community hub. You're hoping to get a venue that your organisation can use. Do you have any idea if there's other organisations in town that would be able to use that same space?
Yeah, so we can essentially use spaces that are used for sports. The main thing for us is that our community likes to hang from the ceiling, and there is a tendency in designs such as this one where the whole roof is covered and there are no exposed weight-bearing beams or rigging points. So that is one of the core things that we would like to be able to hang people safely from the ceilings. And that's something that I would have a conversation with the architects about, and we've got design plans and examples from around the country as well about what that can look like, but it's just not something that gets considered unless we are here saying hello.
You also speak about visiting artists as well, hosting. Are you aware of missed opportunities for people because of a lack of?
Yeah, so Kumarani is actually recognised across the circus sector, both in New Zealand, and then we also have international artists that hear of us through the grapevine and come and often land in Auckland and come straight to Northland to be welcomed in, and we do put their shows on. We just kind of tell them, hey, these are the venues that are available. These ones have those bits that these bits don't, and we make it work because we still want our communities to see, quality entertainment and be bringing that talent into our communities. And we know that if we weren't here, that we wouldn't get, international circus artists coming to Kaipara. They generally just go to the cities otherwise. So really wanting to be able to, expand on that and also show our youth talents off more frequently as well, because we do tend to do our big annual shows over in Whangarei where there are venues for that. But it can be a multifunctional space. Our use of the space wouldn't exclude anyone else being able to use those things. It's like an additive so that we are able to, do some fun things.
Great, thanks.
Councillor Lambert.
Very quickly, going off from Erin Wilson-Collins' question, the existing town hall, does it have a high enough ceiling or are you looking for more height?
No, the existing town hall, once it's available again, we would love to be back in there. With that, if there was like retrofitting, one of the things that we would really love to see in these venues is rather than just putting beam clamps on top beams, actually being able to install a permanent rigging system so that we can put things in and out. So again, more multifunctional for other people. Yeah.
Thank you. Further questions? Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thanks.
Okay, next on our list is John Richards. Welcome, John. Thank you, John.
Bird flu, not bird flu, but bird flu. A bird gave a cow bird flu. Must be true because it was in the media. And the media wouldn't lie, even though they took a $55 million bribe from the government to only tell you what the government wanted and not tell you what the government didn't want. Hey, cow, you look a bit sick. Oh, I've got bird flu. How did you know you got bird flu? I got diagnosed and they sent me the diagnosis in a tweet. Anyway, cows are taking this quite seriously. Some of the cows are learning how to climb trees now so they can sit in branches, and notwithstanding the fact that birds are also in the branches and they might get bird flu, but that's cows for you. Anyway, and another cow was seen in a park in town in central Auckland. They were trying to climb a statue so it could shit on the head. Anyway, So it looks like we're getting another pandemic. We had a pandemic before where we had a virus that was meant to get up our nose, and we all went like this. And it turned out that we were all encouraged to take jabs, and it turns out that the jabs actually were killing people, not the virus. But that's another point. Anyway, so apparently we're getting another pandemic because the news media said it, and the news media wouldn't lie to us. So yeah, there we go. So anyway, so a pandemic. So perhaps what's the reason? The rates are going up. The rates are going up because we've got another. Are trying to actually the people that forced us into having injections are actually trying to have got another agenda, and that is to control us all through digital finance. The digital finance is a central bank digital currency, it's called, and the central bank digital currency will completely alter how we live our lives in New Zealand. And during my training, I was taught to look at patterns and also look at the story behind the story. And the pattern here is that every single council in New Zealand is trying to get the same amount of rates is increasing the rates by the same amount for the whole of New Zealand. It's a concert, and this is about $700 for each household, and this not only affects residents, but it also affects businesses in town. And we've heard other people talk about how this town is on its way out because businesses in town are ratepayers, and they also, the $700 that the council's taking out of our wallets will also not be spent in businesses in town. So that's the pattern. The reason for this, what's the reason behind this? The biggest story, the story behind the story is and I've talked about this in the past, every single chief executive in New Zealand belongs to an organisation called the Society of Local Government Managers, which doesn't welcome mayors because the mayors represent the people, and they don't want the mayors taking that information back to the public. So this organisation controls all the chief executives throughout New Zealand, and that's the pattern. The 78 councils are all have the same amount of rates basically being charged, and the idea is to force us into accepting forced poverty on the financial hardship on the community, and then to overcome this, we'll be encouraged to take up central bank digital currencies. The central bank digital currency is a AI controlled thing, and what it will do is if you step out of line, the government can give you money, but they can also take it away from you. So if you step out of line, they can stop you spending. So I'm saying now that this decision to raise the rates universally throughout New Zealand is to create financial hardship to people and encourage them to take up central bank digital currencies, which will mean overseas people will control everything we do in New Zealand. The other thing they want to do is eliminate small towns, and we've heard about that this morning, and send us all into ghettos in cities with a 15-minute limit on which way we can go. If you go outside the limit, your money will be stopped. So you'll be controlled, completely controlled by these central bank digital currencies. And this decision to raise the rates is the most important decision that this council will ever make in their life. More important than getting married, buying a house, because the outcome for the whole of New Zealand depends on the rates rise not going ahead and finding other ways that we can make our township and our community okay without this rates rise. The rates rise is a jack-up.
Thank you, John. Any questions? Councillor Nair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, John. We have gone through the submission, very well written and long, and very tall claims as well, some of them. As a council, you think that we have the power to change not digital currency, but the whole things which you want to be like, no rate increases is what you are proposing.
Yeah.
And you're talking about an agenda where the community takes it over. Probably we would not need a council in that case because we can fix it all, isn't it?
No, we need leadership, but we don't need a distortion through this wango that chief executives belong to, which is the World Economic Forum has said that they will control things through councils, and all they're going to do is control 78 chief executives, and the chief executives then take that back to the council and control their communities. So it's a really, really easy conduit to controlling everything, and this central bank digital currency will take our control away from us completely, and also, like, we'll be living in ghettos and cities. That's their plan, to close all small towns. And you can see that through the people talking this morning about forestry, eliminating farming. Farming, the cows milked every single day, right? There's an income every single day. With forestry, there's an income every 30 years. It doesn't make sense.
Good point. Thank you.
Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, John. Very interesting. I've sat around a number of meetings, and I'm intrigued with what you say about us all being having a foreclosure, if you like, on a $700 rate increase. I haven't had any discussion about that, so could you illuminate where that comes from?
The $700 was a figure that I've heard read on. It seems to be that it's a figure that I've extracted from other councils when I've looked around, and it seems to be fairly consistent that this rates rise represents around about $700. In my case, it's been told to me that it's around about, my rates will go up by about $700.
So this is, to be clear, this is a figure that you've created by your evaluation.
Just by being told what mine's going up, and then looking at reading stuff on the internet that where other councils seem to be putting their rates up by around about $700 per household. But it's an arbitrary figure that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's not the only increase, because next year there's another one planned, and the following year there's another one planned, and they're all compounding on each other.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thanks for your presentation, John.
Sure.
We've got Karen George. Welcome, Sharon.
Welcome. Just get myself sorted, if that's all right. That's a bit bright. Sit over here. Hello, everyone. My name's Sharon George, and I'm a West Kaipara resident and ratepayer. I actually know many of you in the room as well, so which is good. Firstly, I'd like to thank you all for the work that you actually do. It's not an easy job that you do, being a representation of a council and council workers. So the last long-term plan submission was processed in 2021. Since then, we've had a lot of, with the backdrop of COVID, we've had a change in mayoralty, elected members, CEO, change in government, we've had cyclones, we've had lots of things. So that's a lot of change that's happened. I'd like to think that the long-term process is an opportunity for both the council and also the community to reflect on what's gone before, and also potentially what we could do better. And that's pretty much where my submission's coming from. I'm sure it comes to you as no shock that the Kaipara West residents particularly are pretty dissatisfied with the service delivery and the financial management, particularly of this side of the council. And I'm sorry if that's hard to hear, but that's the truth. While it's not a listed topic in my submission, for the sake of my rates, I'd like to see better financial and fiscal management of our council, particular contracts and the projects that we're looking to fund, so that we can really nail those down. Now onto the community hub. You would have seen in my submission that I've got lots of ideas, and I do apologise for some of the typos in that. I wrote it quite late in the night after a hard working day. So, but obviously I believe it's quite aspirational and be really beneficial for our community. Based on numerous conversations with members that I've had around the public, I think there's a lot of good things that can go into that. However, I would like to personally point out to the council, and I have in my submission, that we potentially risk double funding some of these activities that are actually with the community hub. And so for the reasons of financial and fiscal management, I'd like the council to consider how they actually fund the community hub and where the funding actually comes from. And I have outlined some of that in my submission. Parks and reserves. I have to say that I feel personally let down by the council with the quality of the work around our parks, reserves, cemeteries, toilets, and our infrastructure facility. I'm a business owner myself, so one of the things all businesses have had to do is pivot majorly and look at our costing structures, looking at the quality of our contracts that we do, and making sure that we've actually got some really good, robust conversations happening in our contracts. As mentioned in my submission, I'm neither for or against the targeted rates, parks and reserves and library. What I would rather see is a better quality and more fit for purpose contracts that we enter into, so that we can get better delivery of the quality of the services and the outcomes for our community. And I have lots of suggestions. Those who know me know I have lots of suggestions. Rubbish and recycling, I was really disappointed to see that that wasn't on the long-term list. It's quite a problem. It's a major issue for Kaipara West, and I believe that we need a more efficient and aspirational rubbish and recycling contract in place. One where regular rubbish audits form part of the contract, so that we can actually measure the progress that we have against our waste management program. At the moment, they're pretty ad hoc. So I believe there's better ways that we can achieve better outcomes in this space, in the spaces that I've suggested. And again, I have suggestions and I'm happy to discuss. In closing, I guess over the next 3 years, I'd like to see more effort put into achieving better financial management and outcomes for our ratepayers when entering into all contracts, including publicly available KPIs that the public can interact with, and so that we can, I guess, hold more accountability for what's happening with our rates, so that we don't end up having rate rises like we're having at the moment. Thanks for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Sharon. Questions? So no?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Sharon. That was awesome. And I went through lots of suggestions, very good suggestions on double funding you mentioned. The question is just a technical one. You also mentioned that at the end of the day, regardless of how much we do for Dargaville, if the rubbish everywhere is not going to look good. And you mentioned about rubbish audit as a clause in the contract. Is it a standard clause in most contracts, or is it something you are proposing?
I'm proposing it because I've seen that in other contracts.
Okay.
I've come from a corporate background myself, and you can write anything that you like into a contract to the benefit of the community, and that's what I'm suggesting to, perhaps in some of these contracts, you can actually wind in some of those things that are going to benefit and be measurable for our community, so.
Great, thank you for that.
Councillor Peniora?
Thank you through the chair. I kind of felt your written submission is quite confusing from what you've said today, because you've talked a lot about the community, but then you're saying not take a targeted rate. It's complex. And then you're saying you don't have a position on targeted rates when parks and libraries, when the status quo is to take a general rate versus a targeted rate, which I would, I just found it.
Thank you, and I'm happy to.
Unclear on.
I'm happy to expand on that. So I said I was neither for or against the targeted rates. I think what we need to do is we need to get the process right of getting good contracts in place. So what's the point in changing the process that we're doing with our targeted rates if we actually don't have the contracts and the contract management right with what we're doing? So that's why I'm holding a position of neither for or against the targeted rates. I'd like to see better management of the contracts, and I've got examples that I'm happy to give of where we could do better.
So in terms of the document where we're asking for, should the money come for the contracts come from the whole ratepayers generally, or those in the vicinity of the service, which of those two options?
To be honest, I didn't feel that there was enough information with the information that you gave us. It was too vague to be able to actually have a firm position on that.
So that is what the position is. Is it taken from all? So it's currently taken from all of the ratepayers. So that's the status quo. Or should we just take from a pool of people who are, like, for example, the libraries and parks, those who are closer, should we just rate it from them, which is placing more of a burden or a cost on those particular targeted ratepayers? Which of those would you think would assist with the overall?
So as I said before, my preference would be to have better quality contracts. If I had to pick between the two, it would be keeping it the status quo at the moment, because we know the status quo, and rather than changing too many things at one time, I would suggest, if I had to pick between the two, that it would be keeping the status quo and fixing the quality of the contracts that we're actually writing, and then perhaps look longer term at making sure that we are funding correctly. And particularly with the rates, parks and reserves, it's my opinion from being in this industry that the contract process, particularly for the parks and reserves, was not done well. There was a lot of, and I'm sure you've had feedback on this as well, there was a lot of, the process wasn't a good process to go through. So what I'm suggesting is I'd like to see those processes done better. For economic development, I think it would be it would be better to have smaller contractors doing smaller areas. We've got a 1,200 square metre district that we've got to cover. As a contractor, a lot of that time is taken up with travel time, and particularly with parks and reserves, for example. If you're going out to travel out to a site and you've had to take an hour and a half, because sometimes it's an hour and a half from the corners of our area to get there, and you can't actually complete the job because of the weather or of what other parameters are there, then that's actually wasted time, wasted money, and it means that the contracts, it's inefficient. And so what I'm proposing is let's look at more efficient ways to do it that could economically be better. You know, businesses in the area, the community in the area, you can get youth involved with doing some of these, having a contractor, for example, that does the northwest part of, you know, the Kaihu, Airinga, all that way, have one
community service,
have one that does Poto, have one that does the Ruawai. Then you're having less travel that's in those areas. You will be able to make those contracts a lot more efficient in the operational part of it, rather than having one large contractor that's having to go everywhere and you end up wasting a lot of time and money in that travel time, and that. So I hope that helps answer those questions.
Thank you, that does. Thank you so much.
Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Sharon. Most insightful, and I'm pleased that you did elaborate that, you've got some experience in this area. And so in parks and reserves, I'm particularly interested to understand more, totally hear what you say about contract structure. Tell us a little bit more about, so we can understand better the outcomes with parks and reserves that you feel have been most underrepresented or represented in terms of good outcomes.
So in this, I'm going to take the position of parks, reserves, toilets and cemeteries, if that's okay.
Yep, that's fine.
So in our day-to-day activity, we get to travel around the country a lot, looking at lots of stuff. And I always have an eyes up approach to actually how our parks and reserves are. I live in this area and I'm very proud of Kaipara. As a contractor, and I'll give you one specific example, and I'm sure there's the documentation to back this up. The toilets, for example, down at the boating club, down by the Dargaville Boating Club. For about 9 months, they were been out of action. And as a contractor, we use those toilets a lot. And so we noticed that either 1 or 2 toilets were out of action for a long period of time. I phoned several times, and I have to say the interaction to be able to say, look, there is a problem. There is quite a defensiveness that comes from the council, whether that's intentional or not. It would be good to look at as though we're trying to help, that we're not trying to hinder. Anyway, those particular toilets, which a lot of contractors and visitors use, it's a very public and visual one. After being out of action for 9 months, I rang the council, who put me onto the contractor, who the first person that rang said, I don't know, I'm just in the office, I don't know. To me, they should know because that's part of their contract. When I asked to go through to the manager to ask what was happening, he said that he'd interacted with the council on it, and that, they were waiting for the long-term plan to come so that they could put new toilets in there. Now let's, whether that's or not, it was the information that was passed on to me. Look, I know toilets are going to cost millions of dollars. So, and I know that our council cannot afford millions of dollars. So I asked him specifically, and I pressed him and I said, what is the issue with the toilet and how much is it going to cost to replace? Oh, look, it's going to quite a bit. So that's why we're waiting for the long-term plan. Rather than spend a lot of money there, we'll do that. So I asked him if he'd actually got an actual quote for getting the toilets fixed. He said, no, we've done an estimate. I said, well, how about you get a quote for it and just see, what you could do. He got a quote for it. And so I followed up every week for about 3 weeks to see if he'd actually got the quote done. He eventually got the quote done. And then the last time that I followed up with him, he said that he had submitted it to council. They had approved it and basically would be fixed within 2 days, and it was significantly under budget. So hence my commentary around we need better quality contract and contract management so that we can get better outcomes for our community.
No, that's cool. And if I may, just as an extension, you obviously followed the malfunctioning of these toilets for 9 months. Did you reach out to local elected members at all to help support action?
I have to say that I reached out to Craig, and Craig was very helpful with it to help. Right, and this was after the fact of frustration. So,
okay. Thank you.
Further question? Thank you, Sharon. Okay, next on is Erno.
Thank you again for your efforts.
Thank you, Sharon.
Welcome, Anna. Thank you.
Kia ora, Council. Yeah, thank you for making it possible for the community to come and talk about the LTP. I want to start by just showing appreciation for the work that you've done in getting an LTP together. I know really well how hard it is to get an LTP together at the moment in this economic environment with the changes that are going on around legislation. So, yeah, credit to you for doing that. What I'm not going to sort of go in detail through my submission, but there are a couple of themes that I just want to touch on. One is around some of the questions that you're asking are questions that would really benefit from having a rich community engagement approach. So when you're talking about community hubs, those are complex questions, and there's going to be a whole lot of prioritization that you're going to need to do and trade-offs around what everyone wants. So you're going to come out of this process with a big long list of things that should be in the community hubs. And what's next? How are you going to address those? How are you going to prioritize and decide what's in and what's out? Because that is a real hard place to be as a council, because you are going to disappoint some people. So there's an option of getting around that, which is to work with the community as perhaps a community panel that represents the views of the community, and let them go through the process alongside you around what are the good ideas, what should be prioritized, and let them show the community's will for what the priorities are. That takes a lot of the burden off you guys to make those tough calls. So I'm suggesting that as something for the community hubs question. And also the Earlitch Park question around what happens in there. Again, there's going to be far more ideas than you can address if you should ever find funding to be able to address them. So again, I think a really good idea would be to go out into the Mangawhai community, set up a group, which has been done before when we've looked at water treatment plant issues as well. So, and work through a process with the community to come up with what the priorities are. Now, I can't remember what the terms of the deal were with the Earlitch Park. My suggestion is that that's actually a really good place, the upper reaches of Earlitch Park, for the new council office and hub. It's an area where it's not going to be that easy to put courts and things on because it's sloping, but you could build on it and put a car park. The car park would be useful for the weekends when the sporting action happens. During the week, it's used for council business. So, suggestion there. So working with communities like that will help to address some of the trust issues that have built up in recent times. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I get a lot of feedback that there are issues around trust and confidence in council. So this is a way for you to start rebuilding that. It encourages people to get involved. And if people are involved, they have a sense of ownership. And if people have a sense of ownership, they look after what council builds better. So that's one theme. I'm going to go on now to when I read the consultation document and saw the phrase in the Mayor's introduction about taking a forward-thinking approach and doing things smarter, cheaper and faster. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a good approach. But when you look at doing things cheaper and faster, sometimes you don't get the right outcome, particularly when you're working with communities, because you have multiple views in the room, in the picture, that need to be addressed. If you do things too smart, too fast, and too cheap, you end up with something that disappoints everybody. So just a word of caution, it's a nice idea, but it's not necessarily always the right idea for working with communities. Another theme that I just want to talk about is the theme of kicking the can down the road. Okay, now councils, since councils began, have been kicking cans down the road, putting off projects because they're expensive, they're difficult. So Dargaville water supply, it needs to be addressed. It's constraining growth, it's constraining business activity, and you can't keep kicking that down the road. You're going to have to make a decision on that at some point. And finally, I just want to talk about climate change. And I would suspect that every one of you here changes your tyres or you have a blowout on the motorway. Would that be fair? No, I can't ask you questions, but so that is something that we do. So climate change is that blowout on the motorway. And we have the opportunity to do something proactive, to work with communities, get people on board, because some of the decisions that people are going to have to make are wicked decisions. Managed retreat is a horrible thing for a community to have to go through. The approach that we were doing with the climate adaptation work involved the community so that if we ever got to that stage where we had to make the wicked choice of managed retreat, we had that knowledge and that understanding in the community rather than it being thrust upon them, as you've seen in recent times with that place down in the South Island where the river's breaching. And yeah, so it's really important to be proactive in this space. So I encourage you to go with option 3. Do it properly. That is what leadership looks like, is looking forward, being the keeper of the long view, which the Office of the Auditor General said was the problem that Kuiper had before. We weren't the keeper of the long view. Now is your chance to be the keepers of the long view, to show true leadership for your communities in these really wicked, difficult spaces. And finally, the targeted rates. It is so tempting as a council to go with user pays. It sounds really logical. But what it means is you don't end up delivering those services that are desperately needed by people who can afford less. So when you look at that table in your consultation document about those targeted rates for libraries and parks, it is the lowest income people who pay the most. Someone with a $9 million farm gets several $1,000s off their rates. Someone living in a $300,000 house pays several $100s more. That is not fair. And as good community leaders, equity and fairness really matters in the decisions that you're making. And the same goes for the sporting facilities. Why one? And with museums, why one? If you're going to do targeted rates to fund those facilities, then do it properly and include everybody. Don't just pick winners. That doesn't help build trust, and you need trust as you're going into these more challenging times. That's it. That's it from me. Thank you.
Ms. Anna. Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Anna. You've touched on a number of interesting topics, but I'll pick on one, and the old wonderful climate adaptation thing. And, you know, I mean, obviously you're referring to, well, I'm assuming you're referring to an earlier decision that we made. However, I have to ask you, are you aware of an announcement that came out last Friday that as a result of cross-party work on climate change, the Finance and Expenditure Committee are going to conduct, and it's interesting that it is a joint cross-party work on climate adaptation. So that being the case, I applaud that personally, but that's not relevant in this. They're going to provide recommendations for the design of climate adaptation frameworks, etc. So why would we push ahead to lead when things are going to be changed?
Answer to that is, I'm going to take you back to 2 or 3 themes earlier, which is kicking the can. There is absolutely nothing to stop you going ahead right now. The framework that central government is going to come up with is highly likely to be exactly what was recommended, because that's all, it originally came from central government.
Surely it's up.
Dynamic adaptive planning, it came out of the government last time. So this government cross-party support, it is likely to be the same thing. And even if it's not exactly what government recommends, it's still getting on with the job. And it's highly needed. And it's not just Ruawai. There's Baileys, there's Tinapai, there's Pahi, there's Dargaville, and parts of Mangawhai, Mangatoroto. Most of our communities, Paparoa, most of our communities in Kaipara have climate-related risk that they need to be getting on with. They need to be planning for. And by this council stopping that pilot program that was Ruawai, it means none of that can go ahead. We're now stuck. So please unhook that stuckness and let's do what needs to be done for the communities.
Question? That's Erin Wilson-Collins.
Thank you. Kia ora, Anna. Thank you for your submission. Nice chunky one too. It's always good. My question relates to the kicking the can down the road. You've mentioned several infrastructure projects that we know have been delayed for many years, and I understand the urgency that you're requesting of us to do something about them, but also the struggle that we have, challenge that we have with current economic climate. Do you have any input, any ideas of how we manage those two opposing operations?
Oh, it's unpopular, but the only way we have to fund a lot of these projects is rates. Now, I know through the grapevine that council has cut funding to transport. When the commissioners were here, they saved money by cutting funding for transport. And our roading took years to recover and it's still not recovered. And it required an injection of about $20 million from the government. So please don't cut roading. This community has one of the highest portions of unsealed roads, and in these weather events, they deteriorate really fast. So please don't cut roads. Sometimes as a leader, you just have to grow some courage and do what needs to be done. Your communities are relying on you to make hard calls and to stand up and front those hard calls for their own protection, to manage the growth that is coming, to manage the environment and the challenges that it faces, and to be as fair and equitable while also doing that work. That is what your community needs you to do.
Councillor Nair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Anna, for the presentation. You mentioned about roading. All I can say is things are happening. There will be more money coming from the central government, being on regional transport committee, 56 billion from this to that. But my question is more related to, you mentioned about Dargaville water supply. And as much you know, as much I know, this is one thing we need to sort out. Based on your experience in the council, I just assume that you would have done something towards it, which you can pass on to the newbies, so we can learn from your experience. Would it be possible?
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you, I mean, this issue has been one as long as I've been involved in council and way before, I imagine. When I was on council, initially we were looking at creating a new dam, and there's been lots and lots of ideas. But when I left council, the idea was to get the dam that currently refills the river when we take too much out of the river and actually start to use that water in the town. There was a cost to doing that, but that was considered probably the most cost-effective option at that time. The other option was the water the dams that are, sorry, not dams, water storage facilities that are up near Glinks and tapping into that. So you've got two options already. And I know that there's been some work done on piping from the dam, his name I've forgotten, up the road, and that the Water Trust over in Glinks has been asking and offering a deal.
Sorry, I was more, and I'm sorry for interruption. I was more interested in something in the past than what is in the present. If you have any other ideas, it will be great to know.
Well, the dam up that way, that's been probably the longest standing option.
Thank you.
And it has been thought through and some costing has been done from memory, because we certainly.
You're mentioning Kopaniki Dam, is it?
Yes, yeah, and we certainly did some work around that, and there were some options that I think had been teased out, but I can't remember the detail.
Thank you very much, Anna. That was awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, Anna.
Thank you.
Next on our list is Tracy Rosetto. Welcome, Tracy.
I'm your good news fairy. I'm not asking for money. I think I'm your second to last, so.
Okay.
1263.
As you would have seen, the submission was very short and sharp. So I'm about to add more depth to that. My name is Tracy Rosetto and I chair the Northland Council of the New Zealand Automobile Association, which has over 1.8 million members. Northland is one of 18 district councils with a membership of 53,000, 6,000 being members in the Kaipara district. The council's submission to the KDC Long-Term Plan 24-27 is regarding the need to have a regional approach to delivering joined-up services for roading and transportation in Northland. Your plan is an infrastructure recovery plan, the focus being on the number one priority, to repair our transport network, which central government have recognised by giving the KDC the option to create a shortened 3-year plan. 62% of your planned capital expenditure, 32% of your operational expenditure, a total of 149 million, is designated for roading and footpaths. The mission being to restore Kaipara's infrastructure for the future and get back on track. I will discuss 5 reasons why this regional approach for joined-up services is fundamental for the Kaipara District Council to deliver the number one priority of repairing our transport network, plus also to continue to grow and prosper. Repairing your network. As per your draft LTP, there remain a number of sites of damaged roading from the 2023 significant weather events. Your draft LTP describes these sites as very complex, with a provisional 9.2 million for this road recovery repair. Northland as a region can afford to attract and employ skilled specialists whom the individual local roading authorities will not be able to do. This recruitment and retention of specialist staff provides the necessary knowledge to take advantage of funding options, getting the engineering and planning right, and getting the job done, especially for complex works. Managing risk. The total roading network that the KDC own is 1,614 kilometres, which equates to over 70% by value of your total assets. How does the council manage the risks associated with maintaining the value of these assets? Public dissatisfaction about the quality of service and the frequency of repairs continues to grow, which is an indication of a deteriorating asset base. We all understand that the funding available does not meet the costs associated with these assets. What this council can control is the level of expertise and efficiencies that a regional approach brings to asset, network and contract management, planning and specialised aspects of the network, for example, bridges. Economic potential. A recent report by the Northland Corporate Group to unleash the economic potential of Northland through a proposed 4-lane expressway connecting Te Tai Tokerau Northland to Auckland by 2040 quantifies how transport infrastructure can change lives. By combining our resources and being collaborative in our approach on a region-wide basis, the Kaipara has the opportunity to achieve better outcomes for its economy, residents and road users. Having a highly skilled and responsive team delivering Kaipara's roading and transport services will be an enabler. One voice. Recent meetings with government ministers and CEOs of large Te Tai Tokerau businesses have established that our region needs to advocate with one voice to be heard and to be effective. The work that the Mural Forum undertook in producing the Blue Book, establishing the infrastructure damage from last year's severe weather events within weeks, quantifying what work was required and requesting funding, ensured that decision makers had the opportunity, had the information required in a timely manner to respond. This work would not have been produced without the knowledge and skill base of a regional roading and transportation team. Road safety. As the region with the highest number of road fatalities per head of population, Northland needs to do better. The Kaipara district, as at Monday, has had 8 fatalities this year, 7 of these on local roads. Northland has 18% of New Zealand fatalities to date, 19 fatalities this year, half of last year's total, and we're only 5 months through. An integrated regional approach to road safety ensures that there are highly skilled road safety engineers working with road safety partners to identify priority areas of action based on data. The NZAA Northland Council is aware of decisions being made regarding the current delivery vehicle for a regional approach to roading and transportation, following a Section 17A review of the Northland Transport Alliance. Our submission is to ensure that there is retained a regional approach to roading and transportation services, including public transport and road safety initiatives. This regional approach is fundamental for the Kaipara district to deliver on its #1 priority, resilience, quality and dependability of the roading network, the infrastructure most significantly impacted by weather events.
Thank you. Some questions, please. Councillor
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if I get it right, Tracy, you are supporting the current model of Northern Transport Alliance is the answer to all our problems.
No, that is clearly not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there needs to be a regional approach, and currently there is a review done on the current vehicle. I don't have enough information to give you an opinion on whether what the current structure of the Northland Transport Alliance is 100% fit for purpose. What I'm saying is that there needs to be, what I'm asking is that there needs to be some centralisation, regional approach to our transport infrastructure challenges.
So it's without any direction, it's just like a certain thing. Okay, thank you.
I don't want you to throw the bath out with the bathwater.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Sarah Norton-Collins.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your submission and your time here today. Can you just repeat, I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. You repeated some fatality stats?
Yes. So we have the highest number of fatalities per head of population in New Zealand. Northland does, yeah. So Kaipara as at Monday had 8 year to date. Northland as a region has 19 this year, half of last year's total, 5 months through, 18% of New Zealand fatalities.
Councillor Lambert.
If I could just expand on that, and well, if you could expand on it, thanks, Tracy. Some of these are remarkable to Northland, these fatalities, that wearing seatbelts, distraction and phone use, which are real big safety education And that's a big fear for you, is that correct?
Correct. So Kaipara currently have a contract with the Northland Road Safety Trust to deliver their funding that they get through NZTA, which is part of the regional long-term plan. And that delivery is very focused on Kaipara's needs, and we are asking for is that there continues to be a regional approach in delivering those safety initiatives and managing the outcomes.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you very much. See, been through. Okay, that's end of it. We'll have some, to inform the public, will be in Mangawai tomorrow for a similar process. And then that goes through to a deliberation process where we consider the submissions. So now we'll break for lunch, and then we have a PEX, publicly excluded meeting thereafter. We'll be back at what time? Half an hour for lunch? Okay. 12:40. 12:40.